Here good?
Mm-hmm.
Last minute bathroom break?
I think we're good.
Okay.
无了色
Huh?
无了色
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Social Exchange Project. I'm your host, Shang Elizabeth Lohr, and today's conversation will be about how the pandemic has impacted our local Hmong organization and our Hmong community as a whole. Today, I sit down with three amazing Hmong women to discuss their personal experiences, what they've seen in their work, and to shed some light on how we can come together to help one another through this ongoing pandemic. My panelists today has been and will continue to be the vital voices advocating in all different capacities, including social justice, gender equity, and overall wellness for Hmong and other communities of color. I'm so proud to be sitting at this table. I don't know how I ended up here, but I'm here sitting at this table with some of the most influential women that I've come to know, and I'm so honored to introduce them. So first joining us today in this conversation is True Vu. She's the executive director of the Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association. Thank you for joining us, True.
Really excited to be
Very
here.
beautiful today.
Thank you. So do you.
And then next up we have Paku Tao. She's the lead organizer with the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition for the program Power Up. Thank you for joining us today. And then last but obviously not least, we have Pa, who's literally the most famous person I've ever met, I feel like, in Eau Claire. Pa Tao, she is the founder and executive director of the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition here in Eau Claire. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Shane.
So I just kind of want to get in right away. Just kind of the basics of these organizations. Obviously, I know what they are, but I don't know if a lot of people out there are familiar. True, if you could just tell us a little bit about the Hmong Association, the services, maybe vision, mission, and values that you do.
Yeah, so the Hmong Association was founded in 1982, and we do a lot of services, advocating, helping folks be more socially and economically successful. And then we also do a lot of advocating and helping with health and access to a lot of different resources.
Amazing. And then Paku?
Yeah, so I am with Black and Brown Women Power Coalition for the program Power Up of Eau Claire. And what we really focuses on is civil engagement and getting people to exercise their right, which is the right to vote, right? We can have all this right, but if we don't have the right, we don't exercise it, then there's really no point. So what we are currently working on is, our Get Out to Vote, registering voters, and then other things that happen in town here, such as I don't know if anybody heard, but like the American Rescue Plan Act.
Yes.
Funds that are coming to the town, and we all have to kind of get out there and say, hey, this funds also belongs to us too. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, and then Pa, can you tell us more about Black and Brown Women Power Coalition?
Yeah, so the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition became a nonprofit in 2019. But prior to that, we were providing training since 2016. The mission of the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition is to build the capacities of Black and Brown women, queer, trans folks, and young people to end violence in the community. And so that's a little bit about the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition. We do statewide work, and so a large portion of the work that we do is statewide. Working with domestic violence, sexual assault victim service providers. And then locally, we have our Power Up Eau Claire project.
That's wonderful. And, obviously one of the biggest experiences that we've all had to deal with is this COVID-19 global pandemic. In this past year and a half, I feel like it's going to be almost 2 years soon here. How, you mentioned that you've done work with victims of sexual assault, or you do work. How did that impact the way you provided services the last year?
Yeah, so I think a lot of services have shifted, right? We used to have all the programs and all the partners we work with used to have in-person support groups, in-person services, and that has to all go virtual, right? But in the beginning, it was really difficult. When the governor enacted the safe at home order, and folks have to be home, we know that was a very dangerous time for a lot of victim survivors, right? because being safe at home doesn't mean that it's safe for everyone, right? And so we know that victims are stuck in abusive household. Young people are stuck in abusive situations that they can't leave, right? And so working through all of that has been, incredibly difficult. But we also know that like the folks that do those work are really resilient and really innovative, right? And so they were able to like really shift programming around, right? Into like doing virtual programming, dropping off care items for the people that they work with. So things like that has been like really impactful through the pandemic.
Yeah, and I'm sure, obviously every organization and sectors of work has been impacted, and obviously a lot of that has shifted to virtual. True, can you tell us more about how the Hmong Association has pivoted the organization?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add with what Pa said too, because we do have advocates that help sexual assault and domestic violence victims, and we had to.
Right, you offer those services.
Yeah, we
at the
also
Hmong
those
Association
services.
as well.
Yes, and so like Pa's right, we had to be innovative. We had to find ways on how to reach them and make sure that they're safe and that their mental health is still there, and trying to help them find a safe space. And we know that the shelter, it was very hard for them during the pandemic too, because there was only limited space for folks to go to if things were to happen. And so we had to do strategic like safety plans with them to make sure that they're always safe and to know that we're always here, to help them through every single process. So it was really important for us. Their safety and their well-being was like our top priority. But I forgot what was
as far as the Hmong Association, how has the organization pivoted or restructured the way that you do services there due to the global pandemic?
Yeah, so in the beginning, they had to... so when the pandemic started, I wasn't there yet, but just talking to the staff, I know that they had to... Because we are like a walk-in client, assistants, and so like the staff had to... shift, like some worked 1 week and then some worked at home, and then they would switch back and forth. There was a lot of virtual. It went like, because we also assisted youth members as well. And so a lot of it went virtual, and some of them really, really loved that personal connection, being face to face. So it was really tough for some of the clients.
It's kind of like a safe place. I know that the location had moved too, but at one point I think you probably still offer this, but opportunities for people to come pick up like food, pantry items and things. Was that still something that was going on, or did that just look differently?
Yeah, it was still going on. Folks just came, and then they would grab what they needed, and then they would go. So it's still, our food pantry is still available. It's every Wednesday from 10 to 2, so they can come and grab food.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I do want to shift a little bit, because I feel like the pandemic has obviously influenced it has really affected and impacted so many of us on a personal level. I want to start with you, Paku. How has the pandemic experience been for you?
So during the pandemic, it was kind of difficult because, just not having to see family and friends. And we were all quarantining, my mom and every one of us, right? And we thought we were doing so well. And we were towards like the end, right? And then everyone just kind of like felt like, oh, I didn't need to quarantine anymore. And that's when, everything happened. My mother-in-law got COVID-19. And then, towards like this year, almost the beginning of this year, my mom and my sister had COVID-19. And for someone like my mom, who doesn't speak the language, it was very difficult navigating the school system, testing, they don't know. So even if they get to the testing, like my brother had to like drive in one car, and then she drive her car, and then he will go through, do the translating, and then she will go through and then do the testing. So it was, it's been difficult.
I mean, that speaks a lot to like how the Hmong community kind of faces like unique challenges, not just the Hmong community, but people of color who maybe English isn't their first language. Like just the interpretation aspect of getting medical services has been, a way that I think has not allowed people to have access to adequate medical care. Pa, could you just speak a little bit more to what other unique challenges that you've seen in the Hmong community when it comes to having access to medical care?
Yeah, so definitely language access is a big part of that, right? And that's actually something that we worked on with the Eau Claire City County Health Department. And so this April, they funded us and HMAA to do a COVID outreach project. And we've been working with them continuously to make sure that there is language access, right? Even through like testing sites. So earlier on, they didn't have like interpreters at any of those sites. And we really dial down and say, hey, you need to do that. So then like testing.
Like there's a need here, clearly, right?
There is clearly a need so that testing can be accessible, information about COVID can be accessible, because what folks doesn't hear from you, they're hearing from other sources that are not like trusted sources that will like give them misinformation about what COVID is, right? And so like early on in the pandemic, we get a ton of like misinformation about COVID, tons of information about how to like what medicine to use for COVID, right? So like people will be like drinking PG, right? And they will say that that's a cure for COVID. So
I don't know where this source is coming from, but please, if that's a sourse that you're listening to, just
right, no, but
disregard it
but
altogether.
This was a local elderly Hmong woman that was like on YouTube, and people actually tuned into her, and they shared this all over Facebook. And so like I don't know who she was, but like it show up in my feed, right? And she was telling folks that yes, if they have COVID-19, they should like drink pee, and she attested to it that it worked for her, right? That she did, it worked for her. And so like stuff like that, like early on, was really like harmful to a community, because they were getting like the wrong information. They were like just taking whatever they believe that will be helpful to like prevent them from getting COVID, or to fix fix COVID if they were like affected with it, right? And so definitely that's a huge barrier, is to like not have accurate information. And that was something that like people didn't even think about in the beginning, right? Was how do we provide information to Hmong community and other communities of color who may not necessarily have the language to talk about COVID, right? And how do we make those information accessible in a way that like people can really understand?
Yeah, I think too, just generally speaking, there's been a lot of back and forth about what sources are credible. And then, the other layer to it is that, Hmong people does have historically a certain level of mistrust when it comes to westernized approaches to medical care. I'll ask you, True. I mean, like for me, for instance, like my mom and dad, they listen to a lot of the like Hmong news through YouTube or like Hmong radio, and because they have this mistrust naturally, for just and my brother's a doctor, and that's saying a lot too, right? And they'll go to him and things like that, but they really feel a lot more comfortable when they're getting news and information from people that look like them. Have you had any of these experiences, and can you speak to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just listening to the Hmong community, because I think that was one of the things that we needed to do to understand what type of information we needed to get them to give
like
to them.
Yeah.
And it was listening to see what are they hearing out in the community, and like Pa said, some of the things that they're hearing out there to like like to even prevent, or when you get it, what should you do? Like these herbal medicine and whatnot. And some of those things, like I don't even know if because this during this pandemic, this virus is so new. I'm like, if the scientists are still trying to figure out what to like do it, and like how do these Hmong people know that their medicine is better than what scientists are figuring out?
Right.
And so it's just really listening to them and what type of information they're getting. And then when the vaccine did come out, and then another issue was, well, some people are dying from the second dose, or things like this. And so you have to listen to them and see what their concerns are, because yes, loved ones are passing away from the virus, but then they're also scared that if they get this shot, that they might also die too.
Right.
So,
and I think too, that's another gap that is being bridged right now with these initiatives that we're all working on, right?
Yeah.
Is that we want to have appropriate amounts of outreach that's getting the right information out there, but doing it in a way where it's culturally competent. I mean, we're Hmong and we're still struggling sometimes, right? To get the right information to like our loved ones even, especially like, my parents, and I can talk to them because they are a different generation, and they're a mix of like, yeah, we want to know more about westernized medicine and vaccinations and facts and things like that, but they are also people that are very holistic in nature, like they look at chuo, or herbal medicine and things like that too. So Paku, can you speak more about your role as a lead organizer on how you are approaching this strategy?
Yeah, so again, like Pa said, we are in connection with Eau Claire Health Department. We're always having meeting with them to see where our numbers are, and then we're also doing a lot of like pop-up clinics to get our Hmong people to come to places that they are comfortable in. For example, we had the pop-up at Hmong Mutual.
Yeah, I think we had like four of them at the Hmong Association.
And just being informed myself, and then informing our population, the Hmong population.
Have you seen in your role people who from just generally, but just are like Hmong people, like the reasons why they may not want to get vaccinated and what that typically looks like?
Just not in my role, but I think as itun sai Hmong na yo, thia itun ya che Hmong na, you know and you hear stories, right? So I think a lot of right now the statistics says that our elders are getting vaccinated, but I think it's the age 18 to 25 that are not vaccinated or are unwilling or still thinking about getting vaccinated, and that's what we kind of have to focus on now, because we know that the elders are getting vaccinated. So now why is it 18 to 25? And I think a lot of that stems from like again, I don't want to say this, but like fake news or like not being informed, or maybe people they are informed, but it's their choice and they choose not to do it.
So there might be like some political aspects as to why that.
I think so. And I think one of the things that I've heard from like a lot of like is that they're trying to get pregnant and they don't know if this vaccine is going to affect that. And that's something, like I told a lot of them, it's information out there, but look at all type of information. Look at the correct information, and once you find it, it's your choice. You can make it, and if you choose not to, that's on you. But just look at the information that we are giving out, and that everyone is giving out, not just what you want to look at.
Pa, can you just speak more to what else you're seeing as barriers to getting people vaccinated?
Yeah, so I think like with what Paku said, and also just folks not want to get vaccinated in general. There's also folks that just don't have time, right? A lot of working families, are working first shift and then switching second shift, and they just don't have time. I know families that like don't have time to get their 12-year-old vaccinated because of that reason, right? And so all those other factors play a huge role in how and why folks are not getting vaccinated. And I think if we can be really creative about how to go about that, right? Like for example, if companies would do pop-ups, right? If they would get their folks vaccinated, so then folks
just like easier access to it,
easier access to that, right? Or give them pay leave for like an hour to go get vaccinated, right? Or to take their family member vaccinated, that kind of thing would be really helpful to make sure that we can really limit that barrier to getting vaccine for the younger age group.
Yeah, that's a good point. In the Eau Claire area, do we know what it looks like for people of color or communities of color, and what if there's any differences there?
Yeah, like for the Asians, I think we're at 53%. And we're right along with, folks who are white. And in our community. So I think, and we did a really big push, because I think in the beginning of the pandemic, we were only at 20%. And so we worked really hard, creating videos, creating posters, sending out CDs of information, calling folks, texting, driving people, saying, we're going to help you, get tested or like go get vaccinated. Just so much information, but now we have that 50% that it's like, what is going on, that it's taking many months for us to figure out what is that last push that we can do to make you go get vaccinated. Because I was talking to some of the professors or people that work at the university. I'm like, why are these 18 to 25-year-olds not getting vaccinated when there was a vaccine clinic right on campus? I'm just so confused as to why they don't want to go.
And what was the like? What did they say about that?
I just don't know. I think because some at that time folks were doing remote learning too, and I think that could have been a cause for that. But
there's
they're
still
not quite
just
sure.
like a lot of unknown, maybe like it's exploring people's reasons and things like that. Is there anything that's being done that you know of that's collecting this information? 'Cause
We actually
know,
did it. Yeah.
Okay.
As a team collaborating, working together, we did a phone bank and we called folks and said, why aren't you getting vaccinated? So, we're working on compiling that information together and seeing why, as the Asian community, we're not getting vaccinated.
Yeah. And when we're thinking about like the Hmong community as a whole, we are very collectivistic in nature. And so when we do things, we normally do it in pretty large groups. And so I'm wondering, was that maybe is that something that's beneficial, that if we just get a couple people that, have gotten vaccinated, like I'm vaccinated, I'm sure we're all vaccinated here, and we say it's really not that bad. We're not turning into zombies. I think there are so many, it's crazy. I read off the CDC, like the myths, and those are things that's being addressed, which is pretty insane. But I guess, going back to some of our cultural like values and things, like, is there a different approach that we should consider when trying to get people, the right information and vaccinated too?
I think because we have so many different types of generations, right?
Yeah.
That I think we have to be strategic in planning how to communicate to those different types of generations. So I think that's something on our end at HMAA, is that we're going to analyze how we have been communicating and who we have been talking to and how we have been doing it, so that we can analyze that and strategically make a plan to do that.
Gotcha. So True, can you just speak to the next few months or year and how it looks like for getting people vaccinated?
So as far as we know, COVID is not going to go away. It's still going to be here, and the work is always going to continue and go on, and we're going to continue to find new things that's going to occur. And for us, it is really finding where the needs are, and as well as we know there's a new age group that might be able to get vaccinated in the next few months here. So it is continuing.
And currently it's 12 and up.
Yeah,
right?
Currently it's 12 and up, but I think the next age group is going to be 5 to 11. So with knowing that, we want to make sure that we have a pop-up clinic at the Go Hmong, so that families, because it's a place where most Hmong families know where to come
and probably feel safe and comfortable.
Yes, exactly. And we'll have the language access there, to help them out. So that they can have families come and get vaccinated. And of course, we're going to have it at a time so that if they're done working later, our hours are going to be extended so that they can come and get vaccinated. And it's going to continue to make sure that folks understand the language, because I know science can be really confusing and those words are very big, and we have to understand those words too. And it's just really educating ourselves so we can educate our community at a timely manner, so that they can get the information the same time, other folks in the community
with the most up-to-date
yes.
information, because things do change.
Yes,
as well, so
exactly. Yeah.
So before we close out today, I just want to get a couple last takeaway and final words from each of you, and we'll maybe start with Pa first. What would you, if you can have any takeaway from this session, what would you say that is?
Yeah, I think collaboration is so important in this work, right? Because we know that we can't do the work alone, and so we partner with organizations like the Hmong Association, BLIA, the Eau Claire County Health Department, and other partners that meets on a bi-weekly basis to really make sure that our community is also centered, right? As they are deciding how to do COVID outreach, as they're deciding how to and where to host clinics and that kind of thing. And so that's the one takeaway from this conversation, but also through working with different partners, that collaboration is so important to really make sure that impacted communities like ours are really centered in those decision making.
What about you, Paco?
I would say, same thing. It's like working together and getting the correct information out there to people who really needs it. It's amazing to be a part of this group, and it's also amazing to have that information because we can say, okay, we don't want the information or we're not part of that. But when you get the information, you have the capacity to pass it on to other people, and then those people can pass on the correct information to other people, and in hopes this is a chain effect that would get everyone vaccinated, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal, is to make sure that our Hmong community still thrive during this time. So,
Knowledge is power.
yeah, knowledge is power.
And then Trick, can you just speak to how we can all get involved and where we can look for accurate information at this time
Yeah,
for those
so-
who are listening?
Absolutely. Like the Eau Claire Health Department, their website is probably the best place to go for that. But then there's also the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition, their Facebook page, the Hmong Association's Facebook page. You can always reach out to us, calling us. And, the Eau Claire Area School District too, a lot of our students go to school, and what Pa said, Blish Wan works there, and she's a part of this collaboration. And so there are lots of places that people can reach out to get the correct information, not just on YouTube, hearing, those who can speak Hmong very well. These are Jimbali, on YouTube, but we are here, and we are here to support because we care, because we have so many similarities in what we're finding that's happening in our own families. So we are not here to
push an
yeah,
agenda.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it really is because we care. So for us to do this, it's because we love and care, and we do a lot of this outside of work hours.
Right.
It's because
We're filming on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's because we want to make sure that our Hmong community does really have the resources that they have.
Amazing. Well, thank you, ladies, all so much for joining me today. I can feel this passion, and this isn't just we were just talking about this. This isn't a 9-to-5 job.
No.
This isn't just a 40-hour-a-week job. This is a lifestyle, and clearly, this is really important to all of us on a personal, but obviously professional and community level. So, thank you all so much for joining me today and spending time with me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Let's go.